Welcome back to the Mentor Roulette grind, and this time we're playing Ninja on a Monday evening, still in the Mock-Tome event. And for duty 1, we start with the classic 1-2 simulator. As a ninja here, all we can really do is 1-2 spam focusing the healthiest mob. In this particular group, the tank stood still for oddly long, so we ended up getting at it before them. They also never really got their tank stance up, but we survived it just fine. It is just a guild test after all. For duty 2, we went to M2N, Arcadion's Honeybee Lovely. And this was an excellent demonstration of how rusty I am on Ninja in particular, as I opened the fight goofing up my opener. In addition to that, on every burst throughout the fight, there is at the very least a little something that goes a bit wrong. Or at least it felt that way. Sometimes I start the signs for Suiton too early, so I have to just hold it for a few seconds. Sometimes Dream Within a Dream is forgotten and drifts significantly, and sometimes I just goof up the entire order of cooldowns. On top of this, every Bunshin happened to come up just as I had spent my Ninki on something else, causing that to drift too. Near the very end of the fight, we have multiple deaths, and I even end up getting charmed right in the middle of a frontal cleave and somehow survive it with 2 Vuln stacks without any barriers or damage reduction at all. When these beats go sideways this much, I certainly get a bit concerned whether we will actually make it. But of course, we do succeed in the end. For duty 3, we went to Shiva Extreme. I offer to go over the fight while we wait for tank replacement, only for someone to run forward and immediately pull. While we do manage to engage just fine, the one tank we had did not know about the stack cleave and immediately died. Both of our mages struggle to even get back up after that. Then the next sword-throwing adze kills the samurai, and then we gradually wipe out. As we wait for a replacement, I explain the fight. And the tank replacement we get is Milesa, who we know from previous Mentor Roulette sets, including the Chaos Agent Ramuh encounter. For the second attempt, I think what really went wrong was that the healers were overwhelmed by the amount of tank damage Shiva dealt, which gradually tired them out of resources. This then gradually caused the raid to die out one by one. At a point near the end where only the tanks and healers are alive, the other ninja suggests to wipe, but given I've cleared this fight with 3 players total, I wasn't going to write it off. Until one healer died while the other got frozen immediately, followed by both tanks being frozen too. Yeah, we probably are not recovering from that. One of our healers end up needing to be replaced as they get disconnected. Gaius the Scholar becomes our replacement, and with Milesa leading the tanking, things go a lot smoother on that front too. In phase 1, our red mage goes down twice, and around the start of phase 2, Milesa dies to auto attacks, and shortly after, the black mage dies to AoEs. The bow phase is completely neutralized as Shiva is somehow aimed straight into the wall, and our off tank gets targeted by the knockback that they just invuln entirely, and we manage to clear. Well done, everyone. The fact we had a light party's worth of solid mentors probably helped massively. For duty 4, we went to Porta Decumana. Turns out the Titan jails happen just about as the 1-minute burst starts, so I guess for jobs that have more of their odd-minute burst in place at this level, maybe holding it might be beneficial. For phase 2, the main tip I can give for Ninja is to limit break before the freebie LB3 is handed out, so you get both. Additionally, depending on when the LB3 is handed out, you may benefit from setting up Suiton before while bursting after to make everything line up right. Naturally, this run went just fine. For duty 5, we went to the best Mentor Roulette duty in the game. Do you come from the hill down under? And of course, all a ninja can do here is 1-2. The only thing you can really do to reduce the total time this will take is sprinting to the boss to start attacking faster. In this run, I managed a whole 10 GZDs. For duty 6, we went to Golbez Normal, and Taldemar Gaius is here too. Overall, the fight goes really well, with no major problems or even a single death, which is very surprising for Golbez. But then the double stacks come in, and the first-timer healer does not realize they should absolutely not be stacked. I end up saying something about it, but 2 players die as a result, and my burst gets messed up too. The horror! But because we had no other mess-ups, we managed to recover rather quickly, to finish off the fight before the second set of double meteors, although our first timer healer went down right at the end. For DD7, we went to look at these ads that you can't attack. A really funny optimization trick you can do for guild tests like this as ninja is the fact that as the bosses are just normal mobs without a dedicated boss arena or anything, you can hide and trick attack the boss properly without Suiton. Furthermore, as guild tests like this one tend to take at most around a minute, the fact you can't use trick attack anymore once the fight is underway is not that important. So set up that trick attack, send the mug, and then as many Raitons within them as you can. For DD8, we went to Ramuh hard, but this was probably the most somehow cursed Ramuh hard I've ever been a part of. Thankfully, it wasn't extreme, as I don't think this would have ever worked. We opened the party with the classic tank wars, which is extra funny when the boss frequently sneaks in an AoE tank buster between their attacks. This ends up killing the monk. Eventually, we get to the ad phase, but take a good hard look at this and tell me how many are actually attacking the ads. This is even more ridiculous because while Ramuh doesn't immediately become invulnerable when the ads spawn, he does become invulnerable if you push him a bit during it, and I am certain a ton of damage just got voided by that, and no one cared. Meanwhile, I'm over here dumping my whole burst into an ad to be sure it gets done today. Oddly demoralizing in a way. And then in the final phase, the monk and black mage get tethered together. They try getting close together, they try separating, they even stop doing anything for a while. I mention the orbs, but they just don't. And eventually just go back to attacking, hoping for the best. What made it work is that on hard, the tether does not have a ramping damage effect, so as long as the healers can keep up, the tether can actually be entirely ignored, although I really don't recommend it. Despite everything, we make it through this cursed run with a grand total of 2 deaths, one of which was at the start and the other at the end of the fight. For DD9, we went to Rathalos normal. Weird, that is a rare one. For phase 1, a piece of advice that also applies for the extreme version is to point Garula away from Rathalos. The cleaves Garula regularly send out also hurt the rider if it is pointed at them, despite the vertical difference. For phase 2, my best advice is to hold burst and simply do filler until Rathalos comes down. If the burst is really good, you might even be able to just full focus on Rathalos while the rest of the party goes for the tail. Just keep in mind that if Rathalos stands up before the tail is dead, the next down will be basically wasted as it is cut short when the tail is cut short. The reason you should hold your burst is because the down gauge is, to my knowledge, filled by action count, meaning that just doing GZDs should fill it almost as fast as if you also use your cooldowns. But holding the cooldowns will allow you to do way more damage when he finally comes down. For DD10, we went to Thornmarch hard with Taldamar, and here my advice is to make sure to actually use your opener burst on the initial ad phase, as it will take way longer if you don't. And regardless, the ad phase easily takes over a minute, leading to the king himself coming in shortly before your 2-minute burst is back. So you can properly prepare anything you need and then get to it. Another tip for specifically this fight is that as ninja, some part of your burst is ranged, so taking note of the timing at which his fluffiness uses Moogle go round and coordinating the ranged part of your burst in the timing where you have to step away is a solid strategy. Probably unsurprisingly, this run went very well though. For DD11, we went to Ifrit hard. I've mentioned before that taking 0 damage from his knockback completely nullifies it. Ninja is among the melee jobs, also counting Reaper, that have any capacity to bear you up in anticipation for it. My advice would be to simply weave Shadeshift around when you do your 2-minute burst or opener to completely prevent Ifrit from stopping you. Also, remember that defeating the nails gives you LB3. Use it. For DD12, we went to Innocence normal. A tip for starting phase 2 slightly better is that once the boss walks over and stops actively attacking, he's going to transition regardless of what you do. which starts at around 15%. As far as I know, he doesn't transition any faster by you hurting him more, so simply use him as a striking dummy to set up as much as you can for Phase 2. And speaking of Phase 2, there is one specific mechanic that almost always goes sideways in this trial. This bit, where the Venery beams at a random shame one by one. If you don't kill her specific target before her cast finishes, she punishes the raid with actually pretty heavy AoE damage. What often goes wrong is players simply attacking a random ad, or alternatively determining that they've got this, I will attack this other one to make things easier. Only for the raid to no longer have it, because maybe the first ad died faster due to a burst. While running ahead, quote unquote, and dealing with the other mobs can make things easier, focusing on the targeted mob one at a time greatly increases the chance that the Venery will not succeed, so just take them out one at a time. Aside from this, the duty went pretty well, of course. Oh yeah, this was also Mentor Roulette clear number 900. I shall excite the For duty 13, we went to deliver pizza in the sewers. And the sheer speed at which we killed the ads was crazy. It was also a bit funny that the tank sort of just stood around instead of bringing the turtle to the herb patch when it seemed like they definitely knew what to do once the herb patch was activated. For duty 14, we went to any annoyers in the chat. And remember, just like the other quote-unquote higher level guild test, lead with hide into trick attack. If you want to be extra fancy, weave true north before hide so you're sure the positional on trick attack connects too. Since Ninja has 0 AoE damage at this level, focus the boss, and once it is done, help with the ads, prioritizing the healthiest one by one. For duty 15, we decided we hadn't quite annoyed the guy enough, so more of that! And it is exactly the same approach again. True north, hide, trick attack, mug, and then Puma shurikens. And 1, 2, 3 as much as you can on the boss. For duty 16, we went to Leviathan hard. A general tip here is that the boss tends to step away very fast right at the start, so holding your burst is a solid idea. For Ninja specifically, using Suiton and just holding it can work, although using it a couple GCDs in may be more reliable. Then start your burst, probably with True North on Leviathan's head when he comes back. This is because the tail takes a bit to spawn. Once the tail is properly there, as a melee, you should switch to it for attacking the boss, as the tail has both the flank and rear positionals. At the same time though, once the burst is over, focusing on ads is probably the better idea. My experience was that the intermission where Leviathan goes away again somewhat coincided well enough that when he came back we had another burst queued up, and the fight ended shortly after that. But do remember to deal with the ads in the first ad waves, especially the spumes. For duty 17, we went to Shinryu normal with Ilana as our paladin tank. Remember, for this fight, during your opener, Shinryu will do a knockback from somewhere, so make sure to respond to that so you don't awkwardly slide off right at the start. Aside from that, phase 1 has a bunch of things that can hurt a lot if you don't respond correctly, but it doesn't kill you outright. Something incredibly funny that happened in the intermission though, was one of the healers not realizing the danger, getting splatted by the proximity AoEs, then they got raised up again, but in their disoriented state from being raised, got splatted again, got raised again, and this time survived due to raise and vuln, and then they died to the QuickTime event. The other healer also almost got swiped by the line AoE right at the start of the final phase, which would probably have led to a wipe if they did. And then, during this final phase, we had 2 more deaths to sliding off the arena. I do have to say, this fight is filled to the brim with cheap shot mechanics like that. Yet, despite that, we still made it through, and I finished off with an LB3 as well. For duty 18, we're back on Leviathan hard again, and indeed, same idea, Suiton during the initial opening of the fight, then burst proper with True North when Leviathan comes back. After the burst, take on the ads, then Leviathan leaves, do the odd minute burst, and shortly after the fight should end. Although this time I ran into the awkward problem that if one of the tanks does not tank the tail, then a melee probably will instead. Which was me. In retrospect, a ninja-specific tip here is to remember that Raiton and Suiton are magic attacks, which means the tail will retaliate on that, so if HP is a concern, True North and bursting on the head might be the safer option for a ninja. And then doing filler on the tail while specifically targeting the head for any filler Raitons if you end up doing any of those. For duty 19, we went to Alexandria, and this duty felt a lot longer than normal. As an example, the first pack took nearly a whole minute of fighting. Every boss also felt like they took substantially longer than average. For my own contribution of mistakes, on the first pull after the first boss, I ended up using Dokomori without using Tenjijin, which effectively desynced these cooldowns for the rest of the dungeon. I decided that it was more valuable to use Tenjijin than intentionally drift it for it to align with bursts, but even with the way I approached it, I could probably have done it better by, for instance, holding Tenrijindo for Kunai's Bane, even if I used Tenjijin on cooldown. Part of why I decided to do it this way is simply that dungeons have a tendency to cause drifting on cooldowns for a job like Ninja anyway, so I assumed that maybe it would fix itself by random chance. And if I did sacrifice the Tenjijin used to realign them, they might just drift apart again, which is no good. Now, taking a quick glance at our team, I have a strong feeling that our Black Mage's rather cursed AoE rotation might have contributed to the pulls being a lot longer, but aside from them having trouble with some boss mechanics here and there, their rotation looked mostly right for boss fights. So I am still a bit surprised it specifically felt like boss fights dragged on in particular. Either way, we still managed to make it through with no major issues. And finally for duty 20, we went to Titan Hard. What makes this fight super awkward for more burst-centric jobs like Ninja at this level is how Titan keeps coming and going in the first half of the fight, not giving you proper opportunity to actually make good use of your cooldowns until the final phase. What made things extra awkward for me was that just before the hard phase ended, I was jailed. That itself is not a problem, I was saved. It wasn't until 2/3 of the way through the damage down debuff though, from the jail, that a healer used Ishuna on me. For the record, that damage down is 75% less damage done. But then the Astrologian also gave me a damage card, so that's something. But it is a bit of a shame when you have such a damage down in the only time frame where you have a proper opportunity to attack. An incredibly heavy focus on trials this time around. And, assuming nothing goes wrong, the second fastest duties, compared to guild tests, is typically trials and normal raids. Which, of course, is how I had time to run 20 duties. Which also means we are now less than 100 roulettes left before hitting the halfway point. Now, that is all for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you would like to support me and my channel more directly, you can become a member like these wonderful people here. You can also alternatively support me through Ko-Fi, link in the description. You can also support the channel by letting the YouTube algorithm know by liking the video, leaving a comment, subscribing, sharing, and hitting the bell to get notified when next I post a video. Fun fact, before Stormblood, Ninja had a front positional alternative to Trick Attack called Sneak Attack. It is worth noting that back then, True North didn't exist, and Trick Attack had a much larger percentage of its damage on the positional bonus. Not to mention, the damage debuff was only applied when the positional was correct. Sneak Attack, however, only did slightly more damage than Trick Attack, and didn't offer a debuff or anything, so it was really only useful in solo content maybe.